Welcome to VLearn. Hello students, welcome to the lecture of System Analysis and Designing. After this lecture, we will be able to understand various concepts of System Analysis and Designing. Today we are going to cover block 1 of System Development. The topic that we are going to cover is what is system? What is information system? Then further we will discuss the system in terms of classification of the system. Later on we will cover characteristics of the system, types of user who use the system in a different way. Then we will discuss types of real-time system, distributed system, and development of a successful system. In this part we will cover the approaches how to develop a system in a successful way. Later on we will also cover different approaches for the information system, and at last we will cover JAD technology or joint application development. चलिए बात करते हैं कि सिस्टम होता क्या है. सिस्टम इज व्हाट बेसिकली इट इज द कलेक्शन ऑफ ग्रुपिंग ऑफ इंटरडिपेंडेंट कंपोनेंट्स जो आपस में जुड़े हुए होते हैं एक पर्टिकुलर प्लान के अकॉर्डिंग. एज ए होल अगर हम नटशेल में देखें तो सिस्टम बहुत सारे इंडिपेंडेंट कंपोनेंट्स का एक कलेक्शन है जो आपस में कॉर्डियली इंटरैक्ट करते हैं और एक पर्टिकुलर गोल को अचीव करने में हमारी हेल्प करते हैं. लेट्स टेक एन एग्जांपल टू मेक इट मोर क्लियर. सपोज देयर इज अ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जहां पे बहुत सारे इश्यूज हैं. इश्यूज लाइक हम कह सकते हैं क्लाइंट से इंटरेक्शन नहीं होता है, मैनेजमेंट के आपस में बहुत सारे इश्यूज हैं, या उस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के अंदर रॉबरी केसेस बहुत सारे होते हैं. इस टाइप की प्रॉब्लम्स को रिजॉल्व करने के लिए वी कैन डेवलप अ सिस्टम, एंड ईच कंपोनेंट ऑफ ए सिस्टम इज द पार्ट ऑफ टोटल सिस्टम, and it has to do its own share of work for the system to achieve the desired goal. Means अगर हम कहते हैं कि सिस्टम एक कलेक्शन है डिफरेंट कंपोनेंट्स का, तो हर कंपोनेंट अपना एक शेयर ऑफ वर्क परफॉर्म करता है जिससे हम अल्टीमेटली उस डिजायर्ड गोल को अचीव कर पाते हैं. इज दैट क्लियर? अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस सिस्टम वे में सोचना मीन्स एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के को बिजनेस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से सोचना. Now we are moving towards that what is exactly the information system. अभी हमने बात की थी सिस्टम की, अब हम बात कर रहे हैं इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम की. सो इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम ऐसे ही नहीं बनता, उसमें बहुत सारे कंपोनेंट्स का इन्वॉल्वमेंट है. लाइक अरेंजमेंट ऑफ पीपल. एक इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम को डेवलप करने के लिए बहुत सारे लोग मिलकर काम करते हैं, कलेक्ट करते हैं डेटा को और उस डेटा को एक पर्टिकुलर सीक्वेंस में प्रोसेस करते हैं, एंड देन उस प्रोसेस डेटा को एक प्रेजेंटेबल फॉर्मेट में हम इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी को यूज करके इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम डेवलप करते हैं. एंड दिस डेवलप्ड इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम बेसिकली हेल्प्स द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन टू इंप्रूव डे टू डे ऑपरेशंस इन द बिजनेस. सो वी कैन से कि इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम किसी भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का या किसी भी एक ऑफिस का सपोर्ट प्रोवाइड करता है उसको, ताकि उसकी डे टू डे रूटीन प्रॉब्लम्स जो है उनको सॉल्व किया जा सके. नॉर्मली जब हम बिजनेस की बात करते हैं तो वहां पे दो इंपॉर्टेंट इश्यूज होते हैं, प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करना और डिसीजन लेना. प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करने के लिए भी हमें इंफॉर्मेशन की जरूरत पड़ती है और डिसीजन मेकिंग करने के लिए भी हमें इंफॉर्मेशन की जरूरत पड़ती है. तो इन ए नटशेल वी कैन ऑल्सो कंसिडर इंफॉर्मेशन इज व्हाट बेसिकली इट्स अ रिपोजिटरी ऑफ डिफरेंट इंफॉर्मेशन ऑफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, और ये इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम आपकी डे टू डे ऑपरेशनल इश्यूज को रिजॉल्व करने में हेल्प करता है. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस एट मैनेजमेंट लेवल इट ऑल्सो हेल्प्स द मैनेजर टू टेक ऑन सम यूजफुल डिसीजंस. वी आर गोइंग फॉरवर्ड. नाउ वी आर मूविंग टुवर्ड्स द क्लासिफिकेशन ऑफ द सिस्टम. We can classify a system on the basis of various characteristics and various parameters. So system is classified into many categories. Here we are discussing 4 major categories. Like the first one is formal, another is informal, Next category is physical or abstract. Third category of the system is open system or closed system. Next and the last one is manual or automated. Before we proceed further, let's discuss the boundary of the system. What do you understand by the term boundary? When we talk about the boundary, so it is the thin line between the firm and its environment. Like I'm taking one example to make it more clear to you. I am in Delhi, but Delhi is a bigger city. Where are you in Delhi? It's Pitampura. But where are you? Where is Pitampura? In which house number? Suppose FU1. It is the house number. This house number is in Pitampura. Pitampura is in Delhi. Delhi is in India and India is in Asia continent. So all the things are specifying a boundary. City has its own boundary. Country has its own boundary. Every system is having its own boundary. Now, we are moving towards the detailed part of the classification of the system. When we talk about the formal system, so formal system of any organization is defined in terms of policies that is built up to resolve operational and long-term issues within the organization, and procedure that we build to operate or to regulate the organization or system. They also comes under the formal system. And schedule. It means policies, procedures and schedule. They collectively helps in the development of formal system. And when we talk about the informal system doesn't follow any policies, procedures and any pre-planning part. Like we can say that sales order processing, you can't imagine that when a customer will come to you and will place an order and you will you can process that order, right? Similarly, you cannot imagine when you will be able to receive a call. So all these two examples are basically the examples of informal system, right? Next, we are moving towards the physical kind of system. Any tangible entities, either it's hardware, vehicle, car, computer, mobile, all these are the examples of physical system. And when we talk about the abstract system, whatever conceptual things comes in the mind of a person or at the organization level, all conceptual parameters are the part of or the example of abstract system, right? Suppose I want to make a cup of tea. So what should be the ingredient, process, all these conceptual things comes under the abstract part. Open system. Open system, when a system is able to exchange the data through its environment, this sort of system is called as an open system. We can consider the example of a computer. Computer takes the input, processes the input and then gives the output. It means processor is exchanging some sort of data. That's why the data is undergoing processing and the output is generating. So computer system could be an example of an open system. Another system type is closed system. For example, closed system are basically considered as a system which is totally isolated from the operational part of a system. For example, feedback system or control system. Feedback is given by the third party and this feedback could be negative or positive, and these things basically helps to control the system. Another type of system is manual. And when we talk about the manual system, it means human being is directly or indirectly involved in the system. For example, railway reservation system, railway stations, automatic system like traffic control system, they all being operate only by the interaction of human being only, right? Real-time system. Very truly said. Where there are rigid time requirement on the flow of data, in that particular situation, we prefer to use a real-time system. I am considering some examples like hospitals, airport, army, defense. These are certain examples of the organization where time requirement is the most sensitive issue. You can't wait. So in that particular system, we prefer to use a real-time system because here the time requirements are too rigid. Got it? Next. Further, we will discuss about some characteristics of the system. How you will identify that this is a system, or this, after identifying this sort of characteristics of a system, you will be able to build a system with the following characteristics. Right? The first characteristic is organization. Next is interaction. Third one is interdependency. And the fourth one is centralized objective. Let's explore each one of these terms in detail. The characteristic of a system are as follows. Organization. When we talk about the organization, it implies the structure and order, where there are different components which are arranged together in a particular plan to achieve the organization objective. Next characteristic corresponds to interaction. Every component function with other component of the system. Until and unless there is no interaction among the component, no work can be performed. Another important characteristic is interdependence. Interdependence among components. One component depends on the another component. Next is integration. Yes, this is again a vital characteristic of a system. Integration is concerned with how a system is tied together. And at last, but not the least, that is central objective. Whenever a system is being developed, every system is characterized by having a central objective. So every system, when it is built up, it has some central objective behind it. Because to achieve only this central objective, all the other components are working together. If there is no central objective, no work can be performed. So while building a system, it is the most important parameter that you set the central objective of the entire system first. And all other components of the system will crave for or will move towards the achieving of this central objective only. Any questions so far? Let's move further. There are multiple contexts of the system. On that basis, there are different types of users of the system. Let's consider an example. Why do business need system analyst? It means system analyst is a different types of user who is using the system in a different context. And when we talk about the types of users of the system, the users are classified into two major categories. The first one is internal users and the other is called as external users. The users within the organizations comes under the category of internal users, and the users outside the organization who can still access the system through the internet, they comes under the external system. Right? Now let's explore a little bit about real-time system, or we can talk like types of real-time system. There are two major categories of the real-time system. The first one is hard real-time system and the second one is soft real-time system. Hard real-time system is that system in which the task is completed on time, because real-time system are very rigid towards the time constraint. So when the task is completed within the stipulated time period, this sort of system is called as a hard real-time system. And when we can relax at the time constraint part, that is less restrictive to the time, as priorities are measured like in scientific experiments and medical imaging system and industry control system also, where the time constraint is not so rigid. In that particular system, we can prefer to use soft real-time system. Any questions so far? Let's proceed further. Now, let's discuss distributed system. Distributed system की जब हम बात करते हैं, it means there is a distribution of data, process and interface component of the information system which are distributed across multiple locations in a computer network. And these multiple locations are being operated by multiple users. So, as a whole, in distributed system, we have to consider three parameters in our mind, that there is a distribution of data, number one, there is a distribution of process, number two, and there is a distribution of interface component across different locations in a computer network. And processing workload is also distributed across multiple computers. So distributed system helps in the sharing of resources, data, workload, and many more things like this. Right? Now, let's follow a methodology which helps in the development of a successful system. ऐसा हम क्या करें जिससे हम एक सिस्टम नहीं, rather we are about to develop a successful system. So the process of developing a successful system involves SDLC, that is System Development Life Cycle. It is basically a standard methodology for the development of the information system. If you will follow this particular system of development, then you will be able to build a successful system. It majorly consists of 4 phases. The first one is system analysis, the second one is system design, and the third one is system construction, and last but not the least, that is implementation and system support. Here are different approaches to the development of prototype. When we talk about the prototype is a working model which helps in the designing and building of a fundamental version of desired system known as prototyping. This entire process जिसमें हम कस्टमर की फंडामेंटल नीड्स को आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं, डिजाइन करते हैं एंड उसको कन्वर्ट कर देते हैं वर्किंग मॉडल में, दैट अप्रोच ऑफ डेवलपिंग a desired system is called as a prototyping. Next comes JAD, that is Joint Application Development. Basic idea behind JAD is to bring structure to the requirement determination phase of the analysis and to review that occur as a part of the design. Right? Participatory design. In this, the entire user community get involved in the development of the प्रोसेस. जब एक सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलप किया जाता है तो एवरीबडी इज इन्वॉल्व इन द डेवलपमेंट प्रोसेस. समवन इज डिजाइनिंग, समवन इज कोडिंग, समवन इज टेस्टिंग, समवन इज एनालिसिंग एंड समवन इज प्रिपेयरिंग implementation document or manual and many more like this. So this sort of design comes under the category of participatory design. Now let's learn a little bit about the approaches which is used for the development of an information system. There are different approaches. The first one is model driven information system approach. This approach basically emphasizes the drawing of pictorial system models to document and validate both existing or proposed system. In this, there is a graphical representation of the system in terms of document which validate the proposed system. Next approach of developing information system is accelerated approach. That is, a prototyping approach is used in this part. We have already covered our prototyping approach in which we prepare a working model. So that working model ultimately fulfill the desired goals of the developing system. JAD is also known as the structured approach. Sometimes it is directly asked that what do you understand by the structured approach? So whenever this question raises, you have to explain the JAD, that is Joint Application Development, in which users, managers and analysts, they all different profile people, they work together for several days and they helps in the development of the desired system, so that developed desired system should be acceptable at the customer part, at the industry level and many more things. Now, explore a little bit more about JAD, that is Joint Application Development. Again, it is a structured approach in which users, managers, sponsors, analysts, system analysts, they work, all these different profile people, they work together for several days in a series of intensive meetings to specify or review the system requirement. The ultimate goal of all these kinds of users which are involved directly or indirectly in the structured approach is to fulfill the requirement of the system, to develop a successful system and to develop a desired system. Another important feature of JAD is the joint requirement planning, which is basically a process where highly structured group meetings are conducted to analyze problems and define the requirement. Because until unless the requirement will not be defined properly, if it is defined and if it is not analyzed, a successful system cannot be developed. So through JAD approach, we conduct lots of meetings, structured meetings to analyze the problem at root level and ultimately to specify and to bring more transparency towards the requirement part by defining it at simplest level. Right? Any questions so far? Now, let's move to another unit of the system analysis and designing, that is how a system analyst performs in a professional life. In this unit of system analysis and designing, we are about to cover different topics like what is the role of a system analyst in the development of a system, what specific duties a system analyst performs during the development of a system. Apart from this, there should be some sort of prerequisite that a system analyst must has. So we will also discuss these parameters under the heading of qualification of system analyst. Apart from this, a system analyst is not a normal user of the system. He should exist some sort of analytical, technical, managerial and interpersonal skills which helps that person to survive in this competitive scenario. Now let's discuss about system analyst. Who is a system analyst? So answer of this question is that system analyst is what basically he is a person which bridges the gap between the person belonging to the IT industry and who are going to provide the solution to the problem of industry people or system users who are also known as clients. It means IT industry and clients के बीच के गैप को ब्रिज करने का काम कौन करता है? System analyst, who needs their system to get automated. Again, when we talk about 21st century, when we talk about IT, when we talk about speed, it means here comes the role of system analyst because he automates most of the system analysis and designing activities which involves the consumption of lots of time. So by using automatic tools, all the parameters which are being solved at the end of system analysis, they get speed up because that person is able to take on decision within the stipulated time period. So ultimately, system analyst plays a very, very important role in the entire development of the system. Sometimes a system analyst is also called as a backbone of the system because He or she is the concerned person who has to finally take on the decision with respect to the welfare of the system. Client. There are different sort of users also. When we talk about the people who use the information system or who are affected by the information system on a regular basis. So we use a common term that is called as a client for the user party as well as for the affected part. So there are two types of users. Internal user, which are who are the employees of the organization, and external users who are the customer of the organization. Here comes the category of different roles which a system analyst has to perform. A system analyst performs the role of a change agent also, because if some sort of changes has been approved by the end of system analyst, then it is the responsibility of all other team member to follow the changes suggested, guided and approved by system analyst, because he is a change agent. Next role of the system analyst focus on to the investigator part and monitoring part of the system analyst. Sometime नहीं, हम कहेंगे इसको most of the time rather. Most of the time, a system analyst performs the role of an investigator. He keep on searching, investigating, analyzing till the end of the system implementation. Right? Architect, yes. The entire architect of system is a system analyst. Again, development of a system is not a one-man show. It is a group activities, as we have already covered this parameter under the JAD technology. So because the system analyst has to deal with the people of different psychology, so the role of the system analyst also involves that he or she has to work as a psychologist at different point of time. Right? Motivator. Again, system development is a teamwork. Team को charge करना पड़ता है. You need to charge the entire team so that output should be maximum. In that particular situation, a system analyst work as a motivator. Right? Intermediary. As we have already covered this point, that system analyst, it acts as a bridge between the client and the system. Now let's discuss some sort of duties that a system analyst has to perform. The first one is defining the requirement. Yes. Before developing any sort of system, it is the prerequisite that all the requirements should be defined properly. If the requirements are not defined properly, you cannot develop a successful system. Another important part is, if you have collected all the requirements, then you need to prioritize all these requirements. Certain things need to be covered first and some it need to be covered later. Then in the next duty of the system analyst involved, analyze properly the current system and the proposed system, and then after analysis evaluate either the new system can actually replace the old system or it is preferable to be with the old system. Another key duties of the system analyst involves solving problems. Yes, he is a problem solver. Two major roles are being played by a system analyst: to resolve the problems and to take on the decisions. Next comes function specification. Function specification duty of the system analyst involve that whenever there is some sort of function to be performed, he focus on to the specification part of that function only. And when we talk about the designing of the system, the duties of the system analyst thinks at the level of the tools. which are about to use in the designing of the system. And evaluating of the system is another important duty of the system analyst, which involves the current comparison of the current system with that of the proposed system, so that it should be finalized which system should actually be implemented, either the old one or the new one. If you want to become a system analyst, there should be certain sort of skills that you must have, and if it is not there, it can be cultivated. So a system analyst must have some specific set of skills. The first one is analytical skills, technical skills, second one, third one is management skills, fourth one is interpersonal skills. So all these skills basically help the system analyst to interact with the team, to solve the problem, to take on the decision, and many more things related with that of the system. When we talk about the analytical skills, let's explore a little bit about the analytical skills. Analytical skills basically involves study of the system first. You cannot resolve a problem until you will not study the system first. So as an analyst, you need to analyze the system first by thoroughly studying the system, then get some sort of understanding by organizational knowledge. Identify the problem, then measure the problem, that up to which extent it can affect the problems, and then finally solve the problem. All these things comes under the analytical skills of the system analyst. Communication skills. Next important skills that a system analyst must has, that is communication skills. Most of the time it is said that communication skills plays a very important role in the development of a good and successful system. That is why communications is also called as it plays a 70% role in the development of a successful system. So a business or system analyst must be able to write and speak in business terms. He must exhibit the quality of interviewing. He or she must be a good listener also. He or she should be technically so sound that they can warn the technical discussion. And technical writing should be the key part of system analyst. Management skills. Truly said by someone that all leaders are not managers, all managers are not good leaders. So a system analyst must have some management sort of skills also, like they must be able to properly manage the resources, and development of a system is a major project for that organization. So system analysts must have project management skills also. Apart from this, management skills also involve the skills of managing risk. And the last one is change management. During the development of the system, it is quite possible that changes are requested at the part of sometime at the part of customer, sometime at the part of technology, management, and many more things. So system analyst must be able to implement the change requested by any other party. Right? Again, interpersonal skills. Interpersonal skills involves the communication skills, working alone or in the team. Interpersonal skills of system analysts involve to facilitate the group by providing assistance to them in the need of hour, and managing the expectations of the team members. Again, because development of a system, it's not a one-man show. It is being developed or it is being done by a group of people. So system analyst plays a very, very important role in developing of a successful system. Further, we are moving towards the process of system development. In system analysis and designing, our major part involves the process of system development. So, in this, we are going to cover different phases of system development life cycle, that is, in short, it is called as a SDLC. There are different phases of the SDLC. The first one is project identification and selection. After this, we will move towards the project initiation and planning part. Analysis will be the next part. Logical design and business aspects of the system, it will be covered. Physical design, testing, implementation, and last, maintenance. These are the different phases of the SDLC that we are going to understand in the later phases. Now, system development life cycle. Most organizations find it beneficial to use a set of such steps called a system development methodology, which helps in the development and support of their information system. System development life cycle is basically a common methodology for the system development. In many organizations, various phases that ultimately reflect the progress of the system analysis and design effort. So SDLC is what basically? It's a methodology which helps in the development of the successful system. Here comes the first part, that is project identification and selection. In this part, we will cover different introduction to documentation of the system. Why documentation is required? Again, documentation is said to be the blueprint of the work of system analyst. Suppose a system analyst died due to some accidental case or due to some another reason. How other team members of that group will be able to develop the system? So we are considering here the worst to worst scenario in which the system analysts need to develop the documentation part also. So why documentation is required? It is a process to help users of the software and other people to use and interact with the system. Effective and accurate documentation is very necessary for the success of a system. Yes, it is true. If there is no documentation, you cannot manage the effectiveness and accuracy of any work. So it is a prerequisite to develop the good documentation which helps the other team member also to proceed towards the work. And the person who is responsible for the communication using document is known as a documenter. Types of documentation. It is popularly known as SRS, that is System Requirement Specification Document. Next document involves System Design Specification Document. Next one is Test Design Document. And the last one is User Manual. Now we are moving towards a database design. A database design can be thought of a set of logically related files which are organized together to facilitate or access by one or more application program and to minimize the data redundancy. What is the goal or objective of database design? So the answer of this question is to eliminate the redundancy. This is the another fundamental objective of developing database design. Another objective involves the integration of the data files. We can share data among all users by database, simplify the use of data files, improve accuracy and retrieving of the data is another important objective of database design. Database design is further explored in terms of logical view of data. The logical view is what the data looks like, how it will look like, regardless of how they are stored. उसकी outlooking, उसका presentation, all these parameters comes under the logical view. It is a view of users, programmer's view. All logical view is called as a schema. A coded set of table describing types of data item, data aggregates, records, all this collectively comes under the category of schema. So logical view is represented with the help of schema only. Here we are discussing different types of databases. Databases is related with data sets, and all these data sets corresponds to one of the three models. First one is hierarchical model, network models, relational model. Hierarchical model stores the data in a tree-like structure, and network model, it is similar to tree, but in it one node contains more than one parent. Relational model, in this entire data is organized in two-dimensional tables. Now let us discuss about SRS, that is System Requirement Specification and Analysis. There are several tools in the structure analysis which helps in the collection of requirement and presenting that requirement in a specific format, which will ultimately help the other people of the system to understand the concept thoroughly. These are data flow diagrams, data dictionary, decision tree, and last, decision table. Data flow diagram. What is this? Data flow diagram is what basically it's a graphical tool which is used to describe and analyze the movement of the data through a system. How your data moves from one part of the system to the other part of the system. This is graphically and pictorially represented only with the help of data flow diagram. Got it? They focus on the data flowing into the system between the process in and out of the data stores. किस तरह से data आपका processes में involve होता है, how it moves towards the databases and many more things. All these are graphically represented in terms of data flow diagrams. Here is some specific notation that we use during the DFD. To represent the data flow, we use the arrows. To represent process, we use circle. To represent external entities, we use square boxes, and open boxes represent the data store. You can just get an idea that how these arrow lines are representing the flow of data in the system in a specific direction, that is from origin to the destination, and the direction of the flow is indicated by arrow and the line is labeled by the name of the data. Process, as per Jordan, this circle is used. In some of the books, another symbol is also represented. Process basically transforms the inputs into the outputs, or they are actually responsible for the action of the system, which is performed by the people or by machine or by computer on incoming data flow, so that the desired output can be produced. External entities are represented by a square. These are the organization, department or people which represent a source or a destination of the transaction or data. When the system we are considering accepts data from another system or providing data to it, all this situation corresponds to the external entity. Okay. Data store. Again, when we talk about the system, so all the data of the system is stored at a single repository, that is called as a data store or database, we can say. It is as the memory of the system. Any place that data accumulate is a data store. The data in a data store are must have at least one data flow pointing towards it or always from it. It can be file or a device. Let's consider this example. This is a context diagram. DFD has different levels, 0 level, 1 level, second level, third level, and many more like this. 0 level is also called as a context level, or the diagram which is quoted in front of you, it is representing the 0 level DFD or context level DFD. Here, this example is representing payroll monitoring system. Context level DFD represent all sort of input which is going into the system, and the type of output generated out of this system is represented in the context diagram. So here you can have a look that admin department is inputting their data, account department is inputting their data into the payroll monitoring system, sales department, new employees data, all these inputs are going into the payroll monitoring system. And as in the form of output, what is coming out? Bank details, sales department data, account department data, and employees data. You can have a view that how a new employee appointment form is entered into the file, how the data is moving across the line, which data element is flowing exactly, it is truly or transparently reflected in the given diagram. You can have a look how different processes are going on. If we move towards this diagram, the first work is entry of new employee, and admin clerk is doing this sort of job. Calculating of net pay is going on. Monthly transaction detail is asked by sales department, and at last pay slips are generated. Here comes data dictionary. Data dictionary is a catalog of all the elements in a system. Data dictionary stores details and description of all data which is used in the system. As a developer, suppose I have to develop a system for the employee, and in the data dictionary I will specify that employee name corresponds to what? It's an employee first name or last name or both. So data dictionary basically act as a tool in the hands of system programmer, developer, designer, analyst, that what data elements are exactly used in the system. You can have a view. Data dictionary contains 3 types of description: data elements, data structure, data flow, and data stores. When we talk about the data element, it is the smallest unit which has meaning. It describes the data level. Data structure. It is a set of data elements that relate to one another. Data flow and data stores are data structure in motion, whereas data stores are data structure at rest. I think you got the difference between two. Flow indicate the dynamic movement of the data, and store indicate the static movement of the data. Major symbol that we use during the data dictionary are this equal to sign, optional entry, plus, and many more like this. Whenever you are about to describe any data element, you have to describe it, its synonym also, its length, name, type of values, right? So a data dictionary basically consists of data about data. The major elements of the data dictionary are data flows, data stores, and process. It doesn't consist of actual data in the database. Data dictionary is kept hidden from the user so that data is not tampered or not changed. Here comes another important tool in the hands of the system analyst, that is decision table. A decision table is a table of rows and columns that shows condition and action. Decision rules including a decision table state what procedure to follow when a certain condition consists of or certain condition exists. So basically there are four components of a decision table. First one is condition stub, condition entries, action stub and action entries. As you have already covered this one, that suppose a sales manager has to develop a decision table for their actions that he has to perform. If a customer purchases the items of worth rupees 1000 greater than or equal to 1000, then he will be awarded, he will be given 10% of the sale amount discount. And if he has a purchase of less than 1000, then no discount will be offered. And if the same customer has purchased items of worth of rupees 5000, then he will be given 25% of the discount. So all these are the decisions that corresponds to that sales manager. So all these managers can be collected in a decision table, which will ultimately help to take on the decisions. Again, when we talk about the decision table, every decision table has a limited entry. It can has extended entry form also. Mixed entry can be done, and all the else actions can also be incorporated in this part. Any presentation of the decision variables that are graphics and sequences showing which condition to consider first, which second and so on. So basically a decision tree is a diagram that represents the conditions and corresponding actions that need to be taken up. And the root is on the left side. Documentation we have already covered, but let's take a little bit of this. A system cannot be completed effectively until it is adequately documented. Preparation of the documentation is quite important, as it depicts what the system is supposed to be and how it should be perform its function. So documentation basically improves the overall operation in addition to management and audit control. Right? So characteristics of the documentation involve that your documentation should properly reflect the objectivity of the document. It should have cross-referables also. It should be easy to maintain. It should be complete in all aspects, right? And all the program should be the part of that documentations. Operational documentation involves all the operational parameters which are being used by different person at operational level. User documentation, it involves the complete overall picture of the system so that all the operation of the company can be done in a smooth way. Management documentation, which helps in the evaluation, monitoring and thoroughly understanding the objective of the existing system with respect to the new one. Right? System documentation of this plan must be thorough enough so that the system designer could produce a complete and effective system. Quality assurance. There are certain quality assurance issues in the software life cycle, so that after following the software development life cycle methodology, when a software is being developed, it should reflect some quality factors also, like the developed software should be correct, accurate, reliable, expandable, efficient in terms of their operations. It should be usable. Software must be able to easily maintain. It must be easily to be tested and portable, so that in different makes of the computer it can run smoothly. Apart from this, software requirement specification and design specification gives the overall architecture of the system or software. Software testing and implementation phase ensures the completeness and accuracy of the system. Implementation phase provides a logical order for the creation of the module. Apart from this, maintenance and support documents. This phase basically provides the necessary software development for the system. Testing. It is the most important phase of the entire SDLC. It is most expensive also and time consuming. Testing held by the user that is performed to prove that program is error free. So basically testing ensures the quality of the software also. Next level of quality assurance involves the verification and validation of the code. So always verification should be done with the intention to find errors. It is performed by executing a program in a simulated environment, and validation refers to the process of using software in a live environment to find the errors. Certification. The last level of quality assurance is to certify the software package developed conforms to the standard, and certification is issued only if the package is successful in all the tests. With this, we are about to finish this session. Any questions so far? Thank you.